Hello, everybody. It's Laura Ellen Christian with AGE-u-cate Training Institute. Welcome to the Artful Connections webinar. We are so glad that you are all here. We're going to let all of you that are attending today roll in. So we're going to wait for a second before we hit go. Just a few reminders. The chat is there. Please use it. We'll be sharing some helpful information and links in the chat for you, but feel free to say hello to each other and to our panelists that are here today as well. So we are excited. AGE-u-cate has been in partnership with the Opening Minds Through Arts program for kind of a year. This marks our 1-year anniversary. May of launching the 2-hour intergenerational arts programming course. And of course, most of you probably know that is a complement to the full Opening Minds Through Art facilitator training that is so loved and integrated throughout the world, really. So that's exciting. All right. I think our numbers have slowed a little bit. It's a minute after the hour. We want to make the most of our time here. So again, welcome. This is our webinar and conversation to dig into Artful Connections, implementing intergenerational arts programming in dementia care. I just have a housekeeping slide next. If you're here and you wanted CEUs, just to go ahead and let you know, our CEUs for nurses, social workers, and other healthcare professionals. We'll be putting a link to the evaluation and payment link a little bit later towards the end of our webinar, and you'll need to complete those within 3 days. It is $20 for that CEU directly through our CEU partner, CEII. We also are offering for no cost CEUs through NCCAP. If you would like that certificate, please send an email to info@agecate.com, and we'll share that email address a little bit later in the webinar as well. But let's get started. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. But I want to introduce our team from OMA. So on the panel today, we have Dr. Amy Elliott, who serves as the director of OMA. Recently joining them, but having a career and history with Miami University. And then we also have Megan, the Associate Director of Opening Minds Through Arts, who is an alumni of Miami University and how she got started in her career. So I'm so excited to have both of these folks with us today to share and impart their wisdom with you. A little bit later, we'll be introducing Haley Kime-Norris and Rachel Witt. They are both working in the engagement and wellness life enrichment space. Haley with Liberty Senior Living and Rachel with Westminster Village. And they're going to share, and we'll introduce them a little more fully a little bit later in the webinar to share how they're implementing some of these best practices that we'll go over. But to kick us off, we're going to share a video just introducing you all to what is Opening Minds Through Art. So sit back and take a look at this.
People with intact cognition oftentimes try to free ourselves from the limitation of having to draw this thing that looks like that, you know. And when you are free from that, you can then break into the abstract world more directly. So when the ability to express is impaired, they think the content is gone. And that's where the violation of human rights come in, because the human is still there. It's just that they are locked behind the disease. It doesn't mean that there isn't somebody in there that's trying to express. And so art is a sort of channel. When logical thinking and verbal expression is impaired, art is still there for them to express. OMA is an intergenerational art program for people with dementia based at Scripps Gerontology Center. We put people with dementia one-on-one with Miami students. The students then facilitate the creative process of the elders so that the elders can express themselves in creating art on their own.
And when I see what I do, and I realize how it comes out, I'm beside myself.
Yes, it's called snowflakes. I know that it doesn't look like snowflakes, but it's my vision of what snowflakes should look like.
Very interesting. It makes you stop and think. It makes you wonder.
So the mission of the program is building bridges across age and cognitive barriers. So that bridge is actually a relationship, and within that relationship, at the foundation is love.
Give her a little something.
People with
So I'm going to turn it over to Megan now, and to kick us off, Megan and Dr. Elliott will really dig into the why, the how, and the research behind Intergenerational Arts Program. So Megan?
Actually, I'm going to kick us off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. And honestly, I know Megan and I, every time we see that video, it's always like the first time. It's so beautiful. But we wanted to talk about intergenerational programming in the context of today's webinar. So for today's webinar, we're defining intergenerational as young adults. So think high school, college students, early adulthood, paired with older generations. And that's also the basis for much of the research that we will go over with OMA today. But technically, yes, intergenerational can mean engagement between any two generations. And we do find that with ALMA when sometimes the generational span is less when we have volunteers in the community participating in OMA. It happens. And of course, sometimes intergenerational programming can mean younger children with older adults. But today, think about intergenerational as those true young adult and older adult engagements. Go to the next slide. So let's set the stage for the benefits of the inclusion of arts in intergenerational programming, especially for individuals living with dementia. Overall, the benefits of intergenerational programming are so intuitive, and there is a strong, existing, and growing body of research to support it. But when we add in arts-based intergenerational programming, we are seeing in both research and practice that there is this alchemy, this special sauce that transcends barriers and creates opportunities for communication and connection. Primarily, since the arts do not require intact memory and language, it allows people living with dementia to more fully participate in activities rather than other activities like trivia or word games. So let's delve deeper. So the next slide. Again, overall, intergenerational programming addresses the social needs of older adults, and it also has the added benefit of addressing the shortages of staffing in communities where oftentimes life engagement professionals may not have the capacity for one-on-one engagement, even in small groups. So intergenerational programming can introduce that individualized component in younger and older pairs. And for individuals living with dementia, those dyadic activities provide the benefits of fewer distractions and more opportunity for connection. But to build real connections between the pairs, they need to have a focus, a task. And here is where arts, music, dance, and other creative engagements serve us so well, because again, arts transcend memory and conventional use of language. And OMA has replicated in multiple studies that it improves the well-being and mood of older adults. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. But first, let's turn to the benefits for younger adults, in particular outcomes related to ageism. We'll go to the next slide. So ageism refers to the stereotypes, how we think, prejudice, how we feel, and discrimination, how we act towards others or ourselves based on age. And research shows that 1 in 2 people are ageist towards older people. So the primary hypothesis would be that increased connection with older people could reduce barriers and stereotypes that are the foundations of ageism. And again, arts-based activities truly give individuals living with dementia that opportunity to engage and connect in the present through creativity and inspiration, creating those moments where we truly see each other with connection and empathy. So it was always a primary research goal of OMA's founder, who we just saw, Elizabeth Lika-Lokan, to test the hypothesis of the benefits of OMA for younger participants. And with a validated tool called the allophilia scale, and allophilia just means the liking of the other, she replicated in study after study that participating in OMA improves students' attitudes towards people living with dementia, and students like older adults living with dementia more. So think about the ramifications of this for society and culture, creating more professionals in the field because they are inspired by those connections and improving their empathy and openness to older generations. It's so important. And we'll go to the next slide. So as you're about to see, OMA uses abstract art to create connection. So why did Dr. Lokan choose abstract art as the foundation of what we do with OMA? We'll go to the next slide. As Megan will show you in examples, abstract art can fill a mind with creativity. Literally, we don't have to draw in the lines. Importantly, the abstract arts projects that pairs engage in together are also engaging the individual living with dementia's brain in a stimulating way through choices and layers. We could do a whole other webinar on how Dr. Lokan developed OMA activities with a goal to activate and stimulate the neural pathways of individuals living with dementia. But safe to say, the goal is strength-based psychology, rooted in the present moment through failure-free abstract art that removes stressors and distractions and helps the art to facilitate through the connectivity triangle, where we can focus as a pair on the failure-free, choice-based, relationship supporting art projects. And I can just say personally, when I was going through OMA facilitator training, I do not self-identify as an artist. And going through that training made me truly, I could feel my brain working in a different way through the choices I was making. And I could feel my connection with the art. It's like all of us that experience OMA, it's proof of concept every time we do it. So that's just one little side note. We'll go to the next slide. So we can see here some of the many published studies supporting the impact of art on people living with dementia through improved quality of life and health. This slide has some broader citations, but OMA also has 13 published studies on our website supporting the improved quality of life for our older participants. Go to the next slide. So in summary, why do art-based intergenerational programming with people living with dementia? It means it meets the social needs of people living with dementia through one-on-one focused connections. The arts transcend memory limitations through creativity and spark and stimulation and self-expression. And it addresses ageism among young people and quality of life in older people, which cultivate community and help us all to evolve. So now I'm really excited to pass it over to Megan to tell us more about best tips and to actually see it in action.
Thanks, Amy, for that introduction just into what intergenerational means and how we can set the stage to learn more about how do we implement the principles of OMA and what that looks like. So some of the strategies for success that we've implemented in OMA in a variety of ways, but could be implemented in other arts activities too. And these are all in the, I think Laura Ellen will talk about it later, but there's an ebook available for free for you all. And these are all mentioned in that ebook. So I just want to highlight a few things. So by creating a welcoming environment, that includes the physical environment. So in our OMA sessions, often we tend to find rooms that are away from a common space or have a door to close that are quiet, that invite people in to be creative and have fun. But it's also in the positioning of how people are sitting next to each other. It's a one-to-one program, so every person living with dementia has a volunteer that they sit next to. And so making sure that volunteer is there to help and be respectful and welcome them into that space to be able to create. We promote communication and connection. All of our volunteers in the traditional OMA program are trained. They have some sort of training on how to best communicate with people living with dementia, talking really slowly, for example, being very patient, not asking question after question, but just really active listening, showing empathy, respect, and having a mutual exchange. So sharing stories and further building their relationship. And then we facilitate meaningful and engagement and experiences. A lot of the time, this is through the different kinds of art activities we provide. So we have many activities that we test here in our studio, and we go through what works about this, what doesn't work, what's frustrating, do I like the end result? By going through that in our own space, we're able to develop and bring to the residents or the people living with dementia you serve a good art activity that they hopefully are engaged with, that they're excited about, and that they're successful at, most importantly. And then by providing supportive guidance, and I have a couple of graphs in a little bit to show you more what that looks like. But we support people by giving them their independence, and we're focused more on providing them with tools to succeed in the process rather than the end product. So it's non-judgmental, it's free, it's failure-free, and participants are empowered to kind of explore their creativity. And then the last part, celebrating and reflecting on their participation in the program. So celebrating could be celebrating different activities or traditions or stories and sharing those with the group, or it could be celebrating their whole collection of artwork or music or whatever it is that they've made over the semester. And then evaluating and reflecting. Often we'll ask participants for their feedback, both the older adults living with dementia and the student volunteers that we work with, or just whoever is also helping you one-on-one. So the next video is going to showcase an OMA session in action. So if you notice any of these things, you can pop them in the chat if you want to be proactive and just see what you see in this short clip of what happens during an OMA session.
That is why actually they do use them, because we go to 2 different rooms. So there's a breaker unit so we are right here. There was one in the square. Again, this is all the oh, that's so nice of them.
I see a lot of great comments in the chat about feeling free, working together, adaptive, encouragement. There's no one not doing it. So the smiles. So I think that thank you all for participating and picking up on that. A lot of those smaller things that were featured, like inspiration, we show them examples of what they'll be creating that day. We give them choices with paint colors or paper preference if it is a project that requires different colored paper, for example. So we build that all into the process, and there's I think it's like 12 or 13 step process that we follow every session. But going back to kind of the root of everything, a lot of what we do is taking the complexity or changing the dynamic of what's easy and what's complex. And so this can get a little bit confusing sometimes, but essentially we're separating out the product from the process. If you think about a lot of the traditional activities that we might see in long-term care, sometimes they're based on maybe a Pinterest board or something easy and fun, but sometimes they're preschool-esque, and that can cause some riff, I think, for some people living with dementia, especially if they're still able and they're still willing to kind of explore, learn a little bit more out, get outside their comfort zone. But something like putting together a jack-o'-lantern can be thought of. For us, it's easy. School kids are doing this. Elementary kids are doing this. So it should be easy enough for someone living with dementia to do as well. But that's actually not the case. So something like this could be very difficult. If you're living with dementia, think about the awareness you have to have spatially, where eyes need to go, where the mouth has to go to make it look like a jack-o'-lantern. Otherwise you kind of, it might be all over the place, and then someone's got to come over, help fix it, and then it's not yours anymore. You might disengage. So it's just something that may cause a lot of strife. Whereas we take an OMA project, for example, we try to make the process simple and easy and build in choices so that not everyone's artwork ends up the same, which is what they would probably do with a jack-o'-lantern. But everything is different, but it's still very complex looking. So it looks like it took a lot of effort and time to get to where it ended up. As with modern art, sometimes there's a lot that goes into it. But the steps along the way are very easy. So here you can see the differentiation of the product. The product can be simple or complex, but the process can either be easy or difficult. And so what we do in OMA is we take a complex looking product, something that's complex looking, and we make the process easy so that the people can attain that complexity at the end. So I think next slide. In the same way, we do this to support their independence too. So we separate out the relationship. Are they dependent on somebody? Are they independent? And also their behavior and action. Are they supported in their artwork journey, or are they unsupported? And so for relationship, a lot of times, especially people living with dementia, may feel very dependent on people, whether that's to help with daily living tasks or, waiting around for food or whatever it is. They're often dependent on someone to help them. And so OMA, we again flip the script and we say they're independent and they're able to do this, but they just can't do it without some support. And so we, as the volunteers, as the facilitators, have to support them. In the training, we call it being a prosthesis, being able to help that person achieve the goal without underscoring their independence. And so this example here in the picture, you can see that the volunteer is holding a paper down, just helping her navigate but she's the one that's actually brushing the paint on the paper. So supporting her independence, while also, yeah, giving her the chance to be creative. So that's that difference of, that's what that means to support their independence. And then Amy alluded to this a little bit, just the impact of OMA. So the 13 studies that we've done have really focused on well-being and also general attitudes of college students specifically who volunteered. We're still looking at reducing loneliness and isolation for our online program, but what we do know is that bringing in people to nursing homes, I want to say it's a very short amount of time that activity professionals and life enrichment professionals get to spend with their residents every day. And so bringing in volunteers helps kind of alleviate that pressure to be able to spend time with every resident. This program, the residents get 1 hour undivided attention from their volunteer, and it's just the two of them, and they get to celebrate that together. The next two bullets focus on increasing college students' liking, which is that allophilia that Amy mentioned. So what that has to do with is kind of their enthusiasm, their comfort level, how much they feel kinship toward, a lot of the just general liking. There's really no other word for it. But what allophilia does, instead of just reducing a prejudice, we're actually building a liking for. So it's kind of a spectrum of tolerance, I guess you would say. So college students are really gaining this appreciation and liking for older adults. And then there was a study recently that came out with medical students' attitudes towards people living with dementia, and I find this fascinating. The first one was just done with college students in all different majors, all different years. They weren't studying anything aging related. But medical school students obviously are going into the medical field, are going to be working with people hands-on. And there were similar changes in attitudes as the college students. So even the medical school students who participated had a higher change in their attitude toward people living with dementia than students who did not participate in the program. And then the last bullet here is just building bridges in the community, which I'm excited to have Haley and Rachel here to kind of talk about their experiences, but that's really all about creating a larger community. I think Laura Ellen said we're worldwide, and so we're pairing long-term care communities with neighboring schools or universities, just trying to build community within cities or local, areas to better see people. I think I'm in a college town, and so a lot of times I hear, oh, I'm a college student, I don't have to interact with any of the local, natives that are here, but they have that opportunity to go in and visit a nursing home once a week. Like, that's pretty special, and they learn more about their community while they're here. So also OMA has that impact as well. But I think I'm going to turn it over to, oh wait, no, I have one more slide. And this is just about the importance of evaluation. So like we've mentioned, there's several studies, and we're fortunate enough to be based at a research center at a university. So we have a lot of tools at our disposal. But we know that evaluation is good for writing grants or showing, your management or some other participants or people that want to get involved that this program works and it's good, and whatever that program is, right? You have to evaluate any program that you do. But you just want to make sure you're identifying your goals, your objectives before you start. What are we going to get out of this program? Decide what kind of evaluation criteria, what do we want to measure, how do we want to measure it? Involve the people who are important in the process. So whether that's participants, we ask our artists, did you enjoy the project, the art project that you did today? And if they didn't, maybe we don't do that one, or we figure out how to adapt it. So all of that's good feedback. Same from the volunteers. And it could be caregivers too, or whatever population of people you're working with. And then collect your data. There's a bunch of different ways to collect data, and I'm all about trying to figure out the best way to do it. You could do online forms, you could do paper forms, but making sure that you have that data to be able to use going forward. And good quotes are good, but bad quotes are even better, I think, because then you can learn from them, and the feedback, you can always improve and you can keep going. So that's, I think, all I had to add. I don't know, Amy, if you had anything else about evaluation, but I think I'll pass it on to Laura Ellen.
Great. Thank you so much, Megan and Dr. Elliott. We're going to move on to you all hearing from folks in the industry supporting aging services and how they've been able to implement intergenerational arts programming. So first, I'm going to quickly introduce Haley Kime-Norris, Inspire Wellness and Enrichment Coordinator for Liberty Senior Living. And Liberty has 20+ communities throughout their landscape. And Haley does a fantastic job supporting all of the engagement coordinators, and I'm sure much more under the hat there. But I'll briefly introduce and then let Haley talk. So Liberty Senior Living, with Haley's great encouragement and involvement, invested in the intergenerational arts programming for people living with dementia course. It's a mouthful, but it's a great course. And we were able to bring that course in person to Liberty Senior Living and engagement leaders. It is originally designed as an online learning course, but it was phenomenal in person. And Megan was there with a colleague of hers, Krista, to deliver that. And I was there as a watcher and participator. And it had some fantastic outcomes. And Haley's going to talk about that in just a second. I'm going to share just a short video, if that's okay with you, Haley, just to show people what it is that you all engaged in, and then we'll turn it over to you. So here is a little snippet. It's I did this, so the production quality is very low, but hopefully you will get a sense of how these engagement leaders were able to invest their time and learn some new skills and talent.
Hi, it's Laura Ellen with AGE-u-cate Training Institute. I'm here in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina at a Liberty Senior Living community. It's called South Bay at Mount Pleasant. And so excited, we are offering in person our intergenerational arts programming course in collaboration with OMA. So the OMA team is here in person, and I'm going to take you inside and take a look at what they are experiencing as an engagement team. Let's go. Show me your creation. Here you go. Beautiful. You gonna name it?
I'm gonna name it Heartstrings.
What you thought about the OMA course?
I thought the ladies did a great job explaining things to us. We learned a lot about dementia and how it works. And I think the projects were great. They were fast, but yet productive, and they were beautiful when they were done.
Can you see doing this artwork in your community?
Absolutely. I'm gonna bring it back.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
You will.
All right. So Haley, take it away and share with the good folks here what you'd like to share about the takeaways from this course and what you guys are up to now from engaging with the OMA team.
Oh, sure. Thanks for having me, first of all. And also the name of this painting, I'm going to have to go with spider webs. That's what it looks like to me. But my name is Haley Kime-Norris. Nice to see y'all. Nice to be with you all. I first saw Dr. Loken, when I was at the ICAA conference last year, which is the International Council of Active Aging, has a lot of great continuing education opportunities as well. And so Dr. Loken and Laura Ellen Christian from AGE-u-cate presented on what OMA was and what this program did for residents, and I was really interested in it. And my role is, as Laura Ellen said, I support all of our wellness directors, all of our activity directors, and our life enrichment directors in all the levels of care. So I work with independent living, assisted living, memory care, memory support, and skilled nursing. And the good thing about that is I'm with this OMA project and program, it's able to be instilled into all of those levels of care. So it's not just for, you think of maybe activities for just memory care. If you think about an independent living community, there's residents who have a continuum of what independent living means. And so there may be individuals in independent living that have some cognitive decline. So this has been successful in all levels of care. So as someone who works in that kind of realm, I just wanted to support that statement. We have an annual conference for all of our healthcare activity directors in person. That's where we got to do this lovely training this past January, actually. And OMA came out and provided our staff with tools of how to execute this with our residents. You know, for those who are in the field of activities, it's one of the following that are in the field of activities. It's either people who are fresh out of college and have all of these fun ideas from Pinterest, and they're really excited and you know, really engaged. And then you have people who have been in the field for maybe 10, 20 years who are still excited, who are super engaged, very knowledgeable, and also need new ideas so that they don't get in this slump of, what am I doing with residents? What's going to be fun on the calendar for me to provide that's engaging for our residents? And I think that OMA really benefited everyone. For those, the staff that had just come out of college who was started off as an activity director or an activity assistant, this was so beneficial for them. And for those who have been in the field for 10, 20 years, they learned something new. I think that it really was astounding. The feedback that I've received from our staff, I mean, one thing is that it's budget friendly, which all activity directors know that budget friendly activities are super important and super great for our residents because that means we can do more of them. And so with everything that we utilize with the OMA projects, that's all things that every activity director probably already has. It's tissue paper, paint, some paint brushes, and some tape. And obviously you have yarn and ribbon that's been donated from families and residents when they move out, or maybe when they move in and they're cleaning out their closet. So it's all things that you already have in your toolbox, which I think has also been really wonderful for our buildings, because they can do this as often as they want. When we have a break in, maybe an activity director is out on PTO for a long time, or maybe there's a change in staffing and there's kind of a gap in between, I have the joy of filling in the building. And OMA is something that I always bring in during that session because it's something that everyone can relate to and everyone can enjoy. And the supplies were already there. And every time that I've done it with residents, they have thoroughly enjoyed it. So all around, I mean, I could talk about this for a long time, I guess, apparently. But it's great collective. We're working on the volunteer piece and how we can better partner with local schools, with local universities to make it a more volunteer-based program. For now, many of our staff are leading it, but it has been so successful in all of our buildings. So
thank you so much, Haley. And I think we're kind of right on the time mark of Haley being able to engage with us. So you all know Haley is scooting off to be on the news to share the annual beach day that they coordinate there with Liberty Communities. So she'll share the recording of that news coverage of the fantastic work that they continue to do with an engagement, and we'll be sure to send it out with all of you so you can take a look at that as well and continue the inspiration from Haley and her team. But thank you for sharing that, Haley. I think this is a great example, as you said, of an investment that really has ripple effects in terms of helping engagement leaders learn something new, helping them, be re-inspired, especially if you've been in the field a while. I know that I've been in senior living and the engagement field for 17 or more years, and I was really inspired when I participated in this facilitator course as well. So thank you, Haley, for sharing. All right. So that's an example of Liberty investing in their leaders for an in-person 2-hour course that really gave them some solid skills, some solid inspiration to go back and integrate it into their programming. Next, we're going to hear about the full OMA facilitator program. It's kind of the next step, and what Haley and Liberty might be doing next as they continue to evolve their engagement with intergenerational arts programming. So Megan, are you taking this one to introduce Rachel? Okay.
Yeah, I can. So I'm thrilled to welcome Rachel, and we hadn't met too much prior to this, so I'm really excited that she's here to share her story. But just a little bit more about the facilitator program. So we have a 20-hour training that we provide. The one that Laura Ellen and Haley were just talking about is about 2 to 3 hours, all online typically, but we went in person for that special case. But the facilitator training walks you through a lot of the same concepts, but it's more rooted in how do we design art projects, how do we get partnerships, just giving you more tools, all the evaluation tools, everything to kind of get an official OMA program up and running. So I welcome Rachel to talk a little bit about her experience and what she's been up to.
Hello. I am Rachel Witt. I am the Life Experience Manager at Westminster Village in West Lafayette. We sent 3 of us went to Miami of Ohio for in-person training in 2016 and brought that back to our community. And what really initially drew us is that this is, I have an arts background, so I of course was interested, but what drew our community to do that was really that this fits a unique need for persons with moderate to advanced dementia, which, as you know, is very, very difficult to fill programmatically. And so we were looking at creative ways to do that. We are a full continuum of care community also, like Haley. We have people in independent living who are highly independent, up into people at the end of their life. And we actually have used, we've had OMA participation. We had somebody participate the day before they passed away. So we talk about it filling unique need. There are folks who sometimes really have a desire to be served, but are difficult to serve. And so OMA's started there as a little nugget in 2016. From that time then to present, we have trained just over 400 young people as partners. So we've done a lot of training and kind of Westminsterized it. So I think that's one of the things that's great about OMA and about the entire program is how generous they are with their information, and what a great solid building block program it is that you can kind of modify to your resources and the people you're serving. So this is kind of a joke. Glitter, I am not a glitter lover, but glitter does play heavily into the OMA model. It's a super great microfine glitter that you will probably, I don't know, they say you eat how many bugs a year. I don't even want to talk about how much glitter in a year we end up eating, but it's it must have a preservative effect. But what we do is really bring human beings together. That's at the heart of our program. And one of the great things that I know, we stepped out of OMA training and said, how are we ever going to make this happen with volunteers? This seems impossible. It felt like a mountain. And so really that's what I'm here to talk with you about today, is what those volunteer partnerships and how you might, a few tips for success. So the first thing that we did after we completed facilitator training is we came back and we actually asked our executive director to be an OMA partner. We asked our director of nursing. We tried to do what we called pilot OMA, baby OMA, with the people who spend money in our organization. So we got them on board and they were able to sit with residents, and we were actually able to open their eyes to what could happen. And it really made a huge difference to their support on down the road, because you will hit hurdles. We're serving human beings, so we know we're going to hit hurdles. And having our leadership team on board and behind us and willing to walk with us through those hurdles was a big issue, a big help. The other thing is, be ready to get your 30-second elevator pitch ready. Get your quick explanation of what OMA is and why it's important, and why it's important to serve the people we're serving with creativity. When you can do that, you can kind of drop it in the grocery store when you run into somebody. Those types of communications are really helpful to building your community, your network of support. Consider multiple avenues. So in the years that we have been doing OMA, we have recruited high school students. We have gotten marching bands to come and do service work. We've gotten football players to come and do summertime work. We have pulled from, we're in the same town as Purdue University. And here we came back and we thought, we're going to get pharmacy students and nursing students and teaching students. They're going to be great. You know what? They had no interest in us whatsoever. Who we got were engineering students that somebody had at some point said, you need some better people skills, sir, ma'am. And so suddenly we had engineering students knocking at our doors. And we were like, well, all right, we could do this, And so that really is how we developed a base of students and tried to pick up momentum in that way. And it was kind of phenomenal how it unfolded, but it was 7 years in the making. And we just, in the fall of 23, had a service learning class partnership with Purdue University in Health and Human Sciences. And now we've partnered with them. They teach, it's a science class, remarkably. They teach anatomy of the brain and diseases of the brain, and we teach OMA. And the students come have an experiential learning opportunity here. So there's a lot of opportunity for that piece to develop in your communities. But I don't want you to think just because we live in a town with a university and you don't, that you might not have that as an option. Just keep an open mind about that piece of it and what kind of students you might be able to bring in. Older high school students do also work well for this. So this summer, for example, we have 2 students who are going on to pre-med, who are spending the summer kind of doing a resume builder, and that's helpful. Also, I want to encourage you to consider and include volunteer costs when you do grant applications. If you're going to do a training, buy your students pizza at the training, right? If you are going, we found early on that buying t-shirts for our students so they could go out in the community and kind of advertise, OMA, what's that? And so now we've gone to decals because we have so many. Please, could you put this on your water bottle? So we like to build our advertising in, but consider those costs as you're looking for funds. We also look for volunteers to fill in non-art partner roles. Some of our independent living residents, for example, are not really a fit for art partnering, but they've been phenomenal in doing prep work for us, helping us make the little OMA kits. And everyone's kind of touched by dementia in some way, particularly with our older adults. And so the ability to do something purposeful gave our staff relief. and felt really good and authentic help to our independent living residents who wanted to help. And then this is one thing I know because I manage a whole posse of life enrichment and activities people. You don't necessarily like to toot your own horn. And I understand that. I understand that humility. We're all in it because we love residents and want to serve them. But intentionally publicize, ask for the press release, work with the salesperson at your community, take the pictures, you know, and obviously you want to respect the people you're working with, but do some horn tooting on this because that will build you momentum. After anytime there's a news story that runs, we get more applications for volunteers, and you need one to do the other. I just saw a question pop up about using younger students, 12 to 15. We have gone as young as 13 in our community. I will tell you that they struggle. They need a lot more coaching. It's not impossible, but they don't necessarily have the emotional maturity to set aside whatever it is they're thinking about, right? And so they do take more coaching. When I have young students in, I try and make sure that they get a very slow training and that I give them more prep time in the huddle, and I always do a debrief with them and give them helpful feedback. So it's much more teacherly in that situation. I don't know how much time I was supposed to take. I feel like I might have gone over. I'm sorry, I'm that way.
No,
but I'm happy to answer any questions.
You're perfect. That's a fantastic overview, Rachel. And the next slide we have here was, you know, challenges and barriers. And I feel like you really addressed a lot of these in your talking points, and how you were able to be successful in not only implementing opening minds through arts, but I think another thing that's even more challenging, but equally or more important is sustainability. And I think that's where our challenges and our barriers typically come in. After you can get over the funding hurdle, right, of the initial, you know, investment or how you're going to initially invest in the program, then those challenges come with sustaining it, which you want to do because you want to be able to show back to those investors, the ownership group or your executive director, whoever that stakeholder is, right, the great benefits that you're able to realize with the program that you're implementing. And I think that goes back to a lot of what Megan shared and Dr. Elliott in the beginning of helping people understand the research behind intergenerational arts programming, the tips for success. And I love, Rachel, how you say, you know, start slow and be patient. You know, the universities aren't going to fall in your lap. The volunteers aren't going to be knocking down your doors. You have to be patient and find out what works for you. And the power of, you know, publicity, getting it out there, taking the pictures, sharing it on social media, getting your sales and marketing team involved. So all of those are fantastic. Yeah. I know we're coming down to about the last couple of minutes. If you have more questions, please put them in the Q&A or in the chat and we'll try to get to them. But we're going to scoot through to maybe an important section here, even though it's the last couple of minutes of no money, no problem. So, you know, we've talked about the 2-hour course, which is a little bit of an investment, the OMA facilitator training, which you do have to source funding to get these programs into your communities and sustain them, which are, as we've seen through what we've shared, it's definitely worth the investment. But if you are constrained by funding, or maybe you have a little bit of time until you can apply for that grant, or you can have that conversation to fit other programs into your budget, there's some great resources out there for you. The first is our Artful Connections ebook, which we wrote in collaboration with OMA. So I'm going to share links to these in a minute. Juggling sharing the screen, I didn't realize I can't go grab these links and put them in the chat. So I'm trying to do all those things. So I'll stop sharing in a minute. But we've got the Artful Connections ebook. And then Megan, do you want to share as I'm going to stop sharing so I can get the links to these and put them in the chat. But Megan's going to share a little bit about the Creative Caregiving Guide and Scripts Avid. So as she's sharing, I'm going to put these links in the chat for you.
Thanks, Laura Ellen. Yeah, so two really great free, no cost resources for you. The first, the creative caregiving, well, three resources with the ebook. But the two I'll talk about are the creative caregiving guide, which was developed by national teaching artists in collaboration with the National Center for Creative Aging, which has since folded, but we got this really great resource able to live on our website. So it features Dr. Lokan, the founder of the OMA program, but it also features Ann Basting, who's the founder of the Time Slips program, Gary Glassner, who works with the Alzheimer's Poetry Project, and a few other people. And it just highlights how you can infuse arts-based activities into your creative or to your caregiving routine. So it's worthwhile just to look at. There's step-by-step processes, there's videos for each activity. We haven't really grown it since they developed it, but I think that would be something of interest too. So if you use it and you feel like, oh, we need more of this, we'd love your feedback. And then the second one is Scripts Avid. So this is a relatively new program that we've just launched recently. It's AVID stands for Arts-Based, Virtual, Intergenerational, Dementia-Friendly. So this developed out of the COVID pandemic. We had students coming into our virtual Zoom classrooms during the pandemic. We were like, what are we going to do with these students to make their connections successful and meaningful in a virtual environment? And so the program grew out of that. So in the traditional OMA program in person, we would be one-to-one. With Scripts Avid, we've kind of shifted that to online, and we pair people one-to-one to do different arts-based activities. But what we found is it's just a lot more conversation and getting to know each other, sharing stories, finding commonalities, just bridging generational divide in general. And a lot of our participants right now are not living with dementia that we know of. So we have invited some residents in nursing homes to participate, and their activities director is really great about working with our staff to get them set up and ready to go for students. But it is possible. So if you're curious about that and you want to learn more about how we can connect your residents with students, we'd love to chat too. So.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think I got all of the links in the chat there, so hopefully you were able to grab those. We will send out a follow-up email to everybody that registered for this webinar. It'll have the recording to this webinar and all the links that we've shared in the chat so far. So if you weren't able to grab them, or if you had some challenges there, or maybe some folks had to pop off before, we will send the follow-up email. It'll come from my email address, so make sure you whitelist at AGE-u-cate.com so it lands in your inbox. But this is your time. We have a few more minutes if anyone has any questions for OMA or the AGE-u-cate team or Rachel. I hope this webinar was helpful for you. As a former engagement director in the senior living industry, I know coming on webinars like this are helpful to help inspire you. So we really were aiming to share with you on all levels how you can implement intergenerational arts programming in your community, for your local community, no matter where you engage in, whether it's higher education or community-based living. There is something for everyone across the spectrum of how much resources you have to invest. So let me see the chat here. Right. All right, just some thank yous coming through. So the OMA team, Rachel and Haley, who had to pop off, thank you all so much for joining us for this webinar today. AGE-u-cate's going to take a break for the summer for webinars, but we'll be back in the fall. And we will be sharing some more topics to round out the year. It's crazy to think we're already halfway through the year. But we appreciate all that you do. Thank you so much, and be well. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.